When a man seeks to climb so high that he loses touch with the rest of humanity, he becomes isolated, and this necessarily leads to failure. This line, from the I Ching, also known as the Book of Changes, warns against titanic aspirations that exceed one's power, because a precipitous fall would follow. This ancient wisdom from the Book of Changes appears in hexagram 1, known as the creative, which represents pure creative force, strength, and the active energy of heaven. The hexagram as a whole celebrates dynamic progress and bold action. However, its final line, the top one, introduces a critical caution. It describes the arrogant dragon that has flown too high and eventually captures a moment when great power turns against itself through disconnection and excess. In traditional interpretations, the top line speaks of a situation where someone has risen to the pinnacle but lost all connection to those below. The dragon, a symbol of immense power and good fortune in Chinese culture, becomes arrogant in its heights. Without grounding or support, its position becomes unstable. The commentary notes that such isolation invites regret or calamity because it violates the natural order of harmony between heaven, earth, and humanity. The I Ching teaches that all things exist in relationship. When a person or leader breaks those relationships through excessive elevation, the structure supporting their success begins to crumble. This idea remains remarkably relevant today. In our modern world of rapid success stories, celebrity culture, and high-stakes leadership, many individuals and organizations chase extraordinary heights. Yet history and everyday experience show that losing touch with ordinary human realities often precedes dramatic downfall. The statement does not criticize ambition itself. The I Ching values creative drive and encourages striving. Instead, it warns against ambition that becomes disconnected and arrogant, ambition that forgets its human foundations. The idea that isolation leads to failure is true because of several reasons. First, isolation cuts off feedback. When someone rises so far above others, honest input becomes rare. People may flatter the high achiever out of fear, admiration, or self-interest. Without genuine perspectives from different levels of an organization or society, blind spots grow. Decisions once rooted in real-world understanding become theoretical or self-referential. Small problems that could have been corrected early escalate into crises. Second, isolation erodes empathy and moral grounding. Human connection keeps us aware of the impact of our actions on others. A leader detached from the daily lives of employees, customers, or citizens may pursue policies or strategies that seem brilliant from the top but prove harmful or impractical on the ground. This detachment often leads to ethical lapses. When one no longer sees people as fellow humans, but as resources, numbers, or obstacles, the foundation for responsible leadership weakens. Third, isolation reduces resilience. No one succeeds entirely alone. Networks of support, mentors, colleagues, family, and community provide not only practical help, but also emotional strength during setbacks. The higher one climbs without maintaining these connections, the harder the fall when challenges arise, as they inevitably do. Markets shift, technologies disrupt, political winds change, and personal health or relationships can falter. Those who have maintained relationships can call upon allies and draw on diverse ideas. The isolated individual stands alone against the storm. The I Ching emphasizes living in accordance with the natural flow of change. Hexagram 1 celebrates heaven's creative power, but it must remain in balance with Earth's receptive quality. Pure upward drive without grounding eventually becomes destructive. The arrogant dragon's fall represents this natural correction. It is not punishment by some external force so much as the logical outcome of violating harmony. History offers many illustrations of this principle. Consider the classical example of hubris in ancient Greek tragedy. Leaders and heroes who believed themselves above ordinary limits, above the gods or human norms, often met catastrophic ends. Their stories echo the I Ching's warning. In more recent times, we see parallel patterns in business and politics. Corporate history includes once dominant CEOs who became isolated in their success. Surrounded by yes-men and dazzled by personal wealth and media praise, they lost sight of operational realities, customer needs, or ethical boundaries. Companies that once seemed invincible collapsed or required massive rescues. Political leaders who distance themselves from their base or from expert counsel sometimes pursue policies so detached from public experience that they trigger backlash, loss of support, or even regime instability. Even in science, arts, and technology, the pattern appears. Brilliant innovators who stop listening to collaborators or dismiss criticism can pursue paths that lead to dead ends or public rejection. Their early success, built on talent and connection, gives way to later struggles when isolation sets in. These examples do not negate the value of their contributions. Rather, they show how sustained achievement requires ongoing connection even amid great heights. On a personal level, the same dynamic operates. An individual who pursues career success so single-mindedly that they neglect family, friendships, and personal health may reach impressive professional heights only to find emptiness or crisis waiting. The isolation is not always literal. One can be surrounded by people yet emotionally or relationally detached. The I Ching points to a deeper loss of touch with shared humanity. It is essential to interpret this teaching carefully. The I Ching does not advocate mediocrity or the avoidance of all risk. Some achievements demand periods of intense focus and temporary separation from ordinary routines. Great explorers, researchers, and creators often need solitude for deep work. Visionaries must sometimes see further than their contemporaries. The warning targets unsustainable, arrogant disconnection rather than necessary dedication. Temporary detachment differs from permanent isolation. The former can fuel breakthroughs when balanced by reconnection and humility. The latter breeds the arrogance the I Ching condemns. Grounded ambition recognizes limits, values relationships, and remains open to change. It climbs high but keeps roots in the earth, staying aware of human needs, ethical responsibilities, and the reality that no one exists in isolation. Modern psychology and organizational studies support these ancient observations. Research on leadership effectiveness consistently highlights the importance of emotional intelligence, which includes empathy and relationship management. Leaders who score high in these areas tend to sustain success longer. Studies of executive failure often cite hubris, isolation from dissenting voices, and loss of touch with stakeholders as key factors. These findings echo the I Ching's wisdom without relying on its cosmological framework. How can we apply this teaching in contemporary life? For students, professionals, and aspiring leaders, several principles stand out. First, cultivate humility alongside ambition. Recognize that success builds on the contributions of many others, teachers, colleagues, family, and even critics. Regular reflection on one's dependence on others fosters gratitude and openness. Second, maintain diverse connections. Seek feedback from people at different levels and backgrounds. Mentors provide guidance from experience, while peers and juniors offer fresh perspectives and honest challenges. In organizations, leaders should create cultures where truth can travel upward, not just downward. Third, balance drive with grounding activities. Time spent in ordinary human experiences, community service, family life, physical work, or nature, reminds us of shared realities. These practices prevent the bubble of high achievement from becoming total. Fourth, develop self-awareness. Regular introspection helps detect early signs of arrogance or disconnection. Questions such as, "Am I still listening?" or "How are my decisions affecting others?" serve as useful checks. Finally, understand that failure after extreme isolation is not always total loss. The I Ching is a book of changes. Even the arrogant dragon's repentance opens the possibility of learning and renewed, wiser action. Many who have fallen from great heights later contribute meaningfully through regained humility and perspective. The I Ching's warning in Hexagram 1 remains powerful because it addresses a fundamental tension in human experience, the desire to excel and create versus the need for connection and harmony. Climbing high is natural and admirable, but losing touch with people transforms strength into vulnerability. Isolation may feel like freedom or superiority in the moment, yet it undermines the very foundations needed for lasting success. This teaching encourages a mature form of ambition, one that reaches upward while staying rooted in human reality. It calls for creativity without arrogance, leadership without detachment, and personal striving without self-forgetting. In a world that often celebrates extreme individual success, the I Ching invites us to remember that true power flows through relationship and balance. By reflecting on this ancient line, we gain practical wisdom for our own lives and careers. Whether in business, academia, public service, or personal development, maintaining connection helps us build achievements that endure. We learn to aspire greatly while remaining part of the human community that makes such aspiration possible and meaningful. In doing so, we avoid the precipitous fall and instead participate in the ongoing harmonious flow of change that the I Ching so elegantly describes. If this reflection spoke to you and you would like to explore more timeless ideas from ancient wisdom, philosophy, psychology, and human nature, then give this video a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and share it with someone who may need it. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay grounded, stay aware, and never lose touch with your humanity.